Welcome to Battleground Chats. And in this episode, I'm really pleased to have my good friend Craig Walsh joining us. Welcome to Battleground Chats, Craig.
Thanks, Craig. Happy to be here.
The two Craig. So we've been doing work together, I reckon, 10 years or so.
Oh, at
When you
least.
were at Crown and I had just left Deloitte or even maybe met you at Deloitte. But what's fascinating, Craig, which I want to start with, is in my journey in resilience, meeting lots of people who do business continuity and crisis work and emergency work, I meet a lot of ex-army, ex-police force, ex-emergency services people who try and break into um, the workforce, the industry, whether it's in crisis or emergency or BC or even risk. And take people back, explain your journey and how you where you began and how you also then made that jump very successfully into the workforce outside of the policing force.
Sure. So I'd been in policing for sort of 24, 25 years. I had a great career, worked my way through sort of plain clothes or uniform, plain clothes, became a detective. I was a detective in St Kilda for a couple of years, then went to the armed robbery squad, which
Yep.
was the crime squads at the time, spent sort of 4.5 years there, went to homicide for a couple of years.
Wow,
Um,
that's a journey within the force itself.
Yeah, bank robbery and armored car robberies were sort of in the sort of, I think it was sort of 91 when I landed at the armed robbery squad. That was still pretty popular back then.
Yeah.
Um, so sort of we did a lot of work ourselves in terms of arrests and things like that, but also worked pretty well with the surveillance teams as well and the special operations group. Then went to homicide, which was a different style of investigation. Again, for a couple of years, got promoted. Went to a place called the Special Operations Group for my first stint there.
So
Back to the
that's
army.
for those who don't know, that's kind of like SWAT teams, right?
Well, it's Victoria's sort of counter-terrorism team, the elite team,
Yep.
special weapons and tactics, those types of things. I went there as a supervisor. I went there as a sergeant. And then eventually, after I think for 4 years, maybe something like that, I went back to the crime squads as a detective sergeant at armed robbery, which was then, I think, armed crime or something similar, the armed offenders squad.
Yep.
Still doing bank robberies and aggravated burglaries, those types of things. Um, and then went back to the SOG as a senior sergeant and was eventually spent another few years there. Went around the world on a Churchill Fellowship.
So explain that.
Um,
What's that?
so my role when I went back was as a senior sergeant training and operations. So my responsibility was selecting and training new people to come into the special operations group,
Yep.
um, which like many special forces units around the world, certainly around this country and around the world, the selection process is held very close to the members' hearts.
Yeah.
So it's pretty difficult changing that, but we were really keen to sort of become to benchmark the best practices out there, which was really how we did business then. I mean, it was a fantastic environment to learn best practice.
Yes.
Everywhere you went, you looked at, okay, how does that proceed? Would that work for us? If it would, what would we need to do? If it didn't, how would we change that? Whatever. So, and that really instilled upon me that time at the Special Operations Group, and then took that back to the crime squads. It really instilled the need to be reflective in the
Yeah.
way you worked, to debrief really everything you did. We used to debrief training, operations, really everything we did to try
Yep.
and get better.
Yep.
Acknowledge successes, also gaps, and look at how do we fill those gaps. And part of my Churchill Fellowship was to look at how do we benchmark selection processes around the world. So I was lucky. I went to the FBI hostage rescue team, LAPD SWAT, LA County Sheriff's SWAT,
Yep.
GSD9 in Germany, HMSU in Belfast, SO19 London. It was a
Wow.
fantastic trip,
Yeah.
and looked at how the best in the business selected their people, looked at less than lethal options also, and really just how they did business. So brought all that back, shared it around the country. We fundamentally changed the way we selected people. So instead of a selection training course, we did selection up front
Yep.
and then we trained. And that's the way. There's been modifications since I left many years ago, but that's, as I understand it, that's still the way they sort of operate under those
Those
fundamentals. And
guidelines.
then they've done made some big changes since then, but I think the fundamentals remain the same. So I
And
did a left.
what was your last role in the force before you left?
Well, I did a left-hand turn out of the Special Operations Group. I was a commissioned officer, and I went and ran the media unit,
That is a
uh,
big change.
which I said for my sins, I went and ran the media unit. I thought it'd be to be fair, I thought it'd be give me a rest a little bit after coming
Yeah.
out of the SOG, but it was full on. And within that role for I think a couple of years, it was about managing, you know, a call from every media outlet on the hour, every hour,
Yes.
around the day. I had journos working for me, police. We managed some pretty big incidents, Commonwealth Games, the
Yep.
Kerrang rail
Oof.
accident. There are a lot of matters that the media tend to go out to. Obviously, any of the sieges, all that sort of thing.
Mm.
Police shootings, the underbelly stuff was going on then. So left-hand turn into media, learn a lot about reputation management, crisis management at sort of that reputational level.
Yes.
And then ended up out at the academy at superintendent sort of level, running operational safety for all of the operational members across the state. I stayed there for a couple of years. Along the way, I was a union executive member for the Police Association Victoria for
Yep.
5 or 6 years. Did a little bit of tertiary study along the way as well. Ended up out there and decided that at sort of, I think I was around 40, mid-40s, if I was ever going to jump from policing, which I really enjoyed and I always thought I'd go back to, if I was
Yes.
ever jumping,
Now
now
was
would
the
be the
time.
time. So
And
saw an ad in the.
from your experience, Craig, what age do most people leave if they think they're going to leave? Is that the age, or is there no kind
Well,
of set age?
not a lot of police, not a lot of my colleagues left because they wanted to get into the sort of corporate world. Many of them left pretty disillusioned, disheartened with
Yeah.
the police. I certainly wasn't one of those. I love policing, and had a great affinity with the job itself and the people within it.
Okay.
As I said, I always thought I'd go back.
Yeah.
But for me, it was I think most people work on sort of 60-ish to kind of get out of the workforce, retire, maybe a bit early, maybe a bit later. For me, to have a meaningful career outside policing, it needed to be sort of where I was at 45,
Yep.
roughly.
Yep. Yep.
And that's
That
what I
makes
did.
sense.
And I answered an ad in Seek, I think it was, Crown Casino, looking for what was then a senior operations manager. So
Yep.
did 4 or 5 interviews that seemed to go on forever, and eventually got a role in there. And within a year, I was the general manager of security. And then over time, I ended up with the surveillance department, and we had I had sort of 500 or 600 staff in there over a variety of investigations as well at Crown
Yeah.
Melbourne. So it was a big place.
And how did you? So
Uh,
how did you make that jump? Because I often speak to people on Battleground chats around they've moved and they move from a consulting into corporate or corporate into consulting or engineers that have moved roles. But for for you going from policing a career police person in different forms out into corporate and a casino, how was that jump, and what are some lessons you've learned from that?
Well, one thing I did learn very quickly is everyone thought because you were from policing, you really didn't have a grasp of any commercial
Yeah.
aspects of the business. And, fundamentally, if you knew how to sort of add up and subtract, you always knew what was on the P&L was if it was in red, it wasn't good.
Yes.
Um, so, and that's the same
Did
whether it's
you
in
take it upon
policing or,
yourself to educate yourself more, or it just kind of was natural for
oh,
you?
no, Craig, I went in there with eyes wide open,
Yeah.
looked at it as a challenge. Didn't say a hell of a lot in the first 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
Did a full review of the department from my perspective, what I liked, what I didn't like, what I thought we needed to change,
Yep.
and submitted that, and we made significant changes. Fundamentally changed the way we did business. I didn't like how we were doing business up front.
Yep.
I didn't think it was sustainable. I didn't think it was appropriate, the way we would remove people, especially.
Yep.
The way we conducted investigations, the way there was a lack of cohesiveness between surveillance and security at the time.
Yep.
So we did a lot of changes over, sort of fundamental changes, which some worked, some didn't work. But I think, as I sort of alluded to it before, you need to really reflect on the way you do business and how
Yeah.
you do business. And if you're doing that regularly and you're asking the people around you, especially those involved in it at the front end, your managers, the supervisors, and don't worry, we're getting plenty of advice from people from outside of our
Oh, I'm
department.
sure you
So
were.
along the way. But, if you're reflective on what you do and take the time to understand what you're doing well and
Mm,
what you're doing not so well,
mm.
remembering sort of a couple of years in, we had 4 of our guys charged with murder
Oh, wow.
of a patron one Sunday afternoon, which was a 5-year journey.
Yeah.
They were eventually acquitted, but it really did shake things up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and something like that does, not that for a moment would I suggest that you have a crisis like that, but something like that does tend to unfreeze the culture and open up your team to a different way of thinking, which actually helped us introduce some, digital voice recorders, for example, were no
Right.
one wanted those in there, but from a
Yeah.
governance perspective, from a behavioural change perspective,
Yeah.
that was such an important piece to put in. And there was a lot of, as I think your listeners would understand, not everyone was keen to have their voices recorded
No. No.
or their
No.
performance recorded
Yeah.
24/7. But
But it's how
we
you learn as well, right? And it's like it's everyone's going through this now also with AI in meetings. Should I put AI in meetings because then I can hear and then I can record, and then what if I say something wrong? You were just experiencing that on the front line years earlier.
yeah, that's right. And I think it's the way you sell the message too. Why do we need to change? Change management's critical in all of this. Why do we need to change? What's the change look like? How will we support you going forward?
Yeah.
And really, after a few months, people understood that we just didn't have time to go through hundreds of digital voice recorders and see what they did last weekend.
Yes.
Really, it was about managing incidents, certainly managing underperformance, but specific examples of it,
Yep.
and understanding how, when we did well, which was often why we did well and how we could. And we really introduced a continuous improvement loop. We put operational safety principles in play.
Yep.
We debriefed all the incidents against those operational safety principles. We had a report that the managers who were conducting those debriefs would fill out, and those reports would go into training. And then going forward, all of our maintenance training picked up those gaps and sort of accentuated those successes. And so along the way, we were continuously improving our performance and continuously learning,
Yeah.
which really added to, in all the elite teams I've seen over the years, it all comes back to being reflective.
Yes, and I was going
How
to
did
say
it
that
go?
because we've done some great work together. As part of your continuous learning plan was to work with us when we
Yes.
were Business Olympian, and then now with Battleground, um, to help run crisis exercises, write emergency plans. And that is what I picked up from you and I learned from you is you were often reflecting, oh, hang on, I used to do this at Crown or when I was at the Force, and why don't we try this? And should we do this slightly differently? That continuous learning and feedback loop is definitely something I've seen you practice for real.
Oh, you have to, I think. Who was it? It was Einstein that said if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result
Yeah,
is the definition of
in,
insanity, or something
exactly,
like
exactly,
that.
100%.
Yeah. So, look, my transition into the corporate world, I really enjoyed Crown.
Yeah.
And we had, in the end, it's not, certainly wouldn't call it a badge of honour, but we had two royal commissions that were searching almost brutal inquiries into every facet of the business. And we came through as sort of security surveillance departments came through both of those, one in New South Wales, one in Victoria. Came
Yes.
through both of them really without any recommendations other than data storage, which they pushed out to sort of 12 months. But there were no major recommendations, no major
Yeah,
issues
and that's
with the
kudos
way
to
we
you, right?
ran.
And taking what
Oh,
you've learned. And I think to me, the key message, which I've always um, enjoyed working with you, and the key message I get from you is that continuous learning, being open to feedback, and also um, being respectful. Because I've walked the floor with you at Crown, I've seen you at clients. You're a big presence, Craig Walsh, but I could see that your staff respected you, right? And treating people with respect. And I've seen you at clients with pretty senior people being you earn that respect by being what we say in Yiddish, a mensch, right? And being
right.
a good human. And I think that has to play out in all of that. And the reason you've been able to come on this incredible journey is because you have that respect for others as well.
I think it's being authentic, mate.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting
You,
it.
you've got to be authentic. You've got to provide good leadership. You've got to listen to people. Um, you know, it's imperative that you provide people an opportunity to feed back their thoughts, especially if they're at the front line.
Yep.
Uh, you got to ask the question. We regularly ran sort of anonymous surveys and an open book survey, if you like. Guys, tell us what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. And
Yep.
I would do that with my leaders, my managers all the time because they needed to know that I was prepared to put myself forward and have them criticise my performance. And I think that's part of, as I say, being authentic. I
Mm,
think you recognise your own shortcomings, and anyone who says they haven't got any, isn't being realistic.
is wrong. Yep.
So and it's not. It really it helps you be the best version of yourself. But you need to have the confidence to basically put yourself out there. Not a lot of people do.
Yep.
I have to say,
Yep.
in my experience.
100%. A hundred
Mm.
percent. Our time is up. It's been a pleasure talking to you on Battleground Chats. Craig, we are looking forward to working for many more years together while you are in your retirement. I think you might be coming out of retirement for some Battleground work, um,
Yes,
which will be fun. So thank you so much for joining us.
good, Craig. Have a good day, mate.
You too.